In my last Help Wanted 2 theory, I talked about how I think that FNAF is hinting at a carnival or circus during Fall Fest 1970 being the beginning of the FNAF timeline and the Fazbear brand, which later branched off to Fredbear's Family Diner and more locations following. This may also lead to a game at said carnival in the future, or possibly the reopening of said carnival for the future of the story, but it's unknown whether or not this is all true. But in both the first theory on the game and the last one, I kind of avoided talking about the Candy Cadet stories because I didn't really have an answer for them. However, I stumbled across an idea to do with those Candy Cadet stories and our player character in Help Wanted 2, and since MatPat talked about it in his video, I've gotten a few ideas regarding it. So in this video, we're going to be talking about that and more in my third FNAF VR Help Wanted 2 theory video, discussing more about our player character and about the nature of the game. This theory is much more speculative than my last two, and I don't think the theory is definitive, but I do think it's worth talking about, so let's get started. The Candy Cadet stories in this game have probably been the ones that I've understood the least in all of FNAF. The ones in FNAF 6 very much seem to have been related to the missing kids becoming the fun times. The one in Ruin very clearly seemed to be about Cassie herself getting lured by the mimic speaking in Gregory's voice, but the two stories in this game seem the least clear to me. That's why I didn't really talk about them in my last two theories. The first story was especially confusing because it's really hard to tell if it's actually supposed to tell us something or not. The story is about a family who wants to get a $50 meal but doesn't, and all of them die. That's literally the whole story. It's really weird and abrupt. So what does the story mean? Well, there's two ideas that I want to present to you guys. The first idea is that it's about Jeremy from FNAF VR. The idea is that maybe when Jeremy was getting possessed by Glitchtrap, he rebelled. He didn't listen to Glitchtrap. To Glitchtrap, Jeremy listening to him would have been a good thing to do, but Jeremy didn't do it, and so he died. My other idea actually comes from a comment that my friend Shadow Libra got on his theory video about Help Wanted 2. Here's the comment. I think the Candy Cadet story about the family not getting the ultimate meal is referring to all the animatronics that were lured in FNAF 6. They all heard about a great opportunity, a new pizzeria, that came with so much, but when they tried to take it, they all died. I think this is Scott's way of saying that all the characters in the FNAF 1 to Ultimate Custom Night Saga are dead and none survived, end quote. This idea to me makes a lot of sense so long as everyone actually died. I still question whether or not FNAF 6 failed. I feel like I'm in the minority for even thinking it's possible that it failed, but I feel like it failing makes kind of more sense, while at the same time some of the more recent stuff seems to indicate that it was successful. I feel like maybe some characters are still around, but some are completely gone. I don't know. I honestly still feel like some characters that were in the FNAF 6 fire are probably still around, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think everyone is definitively gone. So, other than that, I don't really know what this story could be telling us. Technically, I'm pretty sure that most of the coins, if not all of them, will just lead you to this story within the coins that you can find in the main hub area. So it could just be like a demo story to try to like get you to think about the fact that we're gonna be getting a story in this game. That's like the only other option that I can think of for it, but I really don't know. The second story is about a little girl who gets lured to a witch by a friendly voice and barely escapes with her life and is permanently scarred. She returns years later with age and experience and tries to get revenge on the witch. She's approached by a young boy and they decide to kill the witch tomorrow, but then the oven closes and the woman ends up getting attacked by the witch once again as the story ends. My initial thought when I first started hearing pieces of this story when I was playing Help Wanted 2 was that it could be about Henry. Charlotte's death is described by Henry as a wound first inflicted on him by Afton, which would be the permanent scar, losing his daughter. But then in FNAF 6, he returns with age and experience to defeat Afton. Afton would of course be the witch in this case. But then the rest of the story happened with the young boy and the witch actually winning in the end, and I started realizing that the idea doesn't really work that well. The first half of the story matches Henry very well, but the second half doesn't really. So what else would this be about? In my first Help Wanted 2 theory, I discussed how I think we play as Cassie's dad, who is probably the Bonnie Bully, which is a theory I came up with myself when I played the game, and once I finished it, I discovered that most other people had also come to that conclusion. But what if it's more than that? Cassie's dad could very well be the Bonnie Bully, but what if he's also Jeremy from FNAF VR? Jeremy seemed to die prior to Help Wanted 1, but it's possible that he didn't, managing to survive. One of the tapes describes Jeremy being covered in what seemed to be ink with a Halloween mask on the floor, and Jeremy supposedly knew about the guillotine paper slicer and an accident seemed to happen regarding it. But what if Jeremy actually didn't cut off his face? One of the scrapped FNAF AR emails mentions Vanessa, who at the time was possessed by glitchtrap, buying 3 male human-like rubber masks. Since glitchtrap was infecting Jeremy, it's entirely possible that the Halloween mask was actually a Halloween mask. However, this doesn't account for the ink or the paper slicer, so this probably isn't true. It's just an idea. Maybe he really did lose his face. He probably did. But maybe the masks that Vanessa bought were for him to cover up his lack of a face. Or maybe he even used the Bonnie mask itself for that. Wild idea? Absolutely. Maybe if Jeremy were Cassie's dad, it wouldn't all be like this, but what makes me think that Jeremy could be Cassie's dad is the Candy Cadet story. Every character named Jeremy in some way has theoretically had damage done to their head. If Jeremy Fitzgerald is believed to be the Bite of 87 victim, his head was bitten. Jeremy from FNAF VR supposedly cut off his own face with the paper slicer, but most importantly, the missing child Jeremy was the kid who possessed Bonnie, and Bonnie in FNAF 2 had no face. This connection is the one that's most interesting to me because the other Jeremys losing their faces happened at the same time or after Withered Bonnie happened. And I could be wrong, but I feel like it's meant to have been branching off from Withered Bonnie losing his face and connecting the other Jeremys to Bonnie. Now, that's not definitive, it's just speculation, but if it were to be intentional, it could connect Cassie's dad with Jeremy. But the main piece of evidence for this theory is that the Candy Cadet story doesn't really match the outcome of Vanessa's story. The idea was that Vanessa was the young woman permanently scarred, and she was scarred because she had been infected with glitchtrap, who was the witch in this story, with Gregory being the little boy. The roles of these characters make sense, but what doesn't make as much sense to me is the fact that the woman in the story loses while Vanessa comes out on top. There's not really any point after FNAF VR and prior to Help Wanted 2 where Vanessa loses to glitchtrap again. He always remains a part of her, and that doesn't really change. Sure, the story could be trying to tell us that did happen, but the point of this game is to destroy glitchtrap and free everyone. So Vanessa being free of glitchtrap makes it pointless to learn that she ever fought back, especially since we already know that she tried, so the story being about Vanessa doesn't really make as much sense. Sure, the roles of the characters match with a woman and a little boy, but are they really supposed to match? Maybe. But instead, what I propose is that the woman in the story is actually meant to represent Cassie's dad, who we play as in Help Wanted 2. See, while yes, glitchtrap does get defeated in the end, and we do help with that, we aren't the one actually doing it. That only happens after we already lose in the Phastron ending. Us losing in the Phastron ending could very well be the end of the Candy Cadet story, but if that were the case, there would have to have been some other way that we'd lost before the events of the game. And that could have either been us dying and getting trapped in this VR world, or maybe that was even the ending of the Candy Cadet story rather than us losing in the Phastron ending. Maybe the permanent scar was instead getting infected by glitchtrap in the first place as Jeremy in FNAF VR. The reason I think it makes sense for our player character to be Jeremy comes from the constant reappearances of the phrase "Remember Jeremy." That phrase first appeared in a teaser for the first Help Wanted, and then as a death screen message in the game itself. The phrase has now reappeared in Help Wanted 2 whenever we get a plushie, which according to the achievements are memories, and the name of the achievement is Remember Jeremy whenever we get our first plushie. That phrase has always been referring to the Jeremy from FNAF VR, who is not the same Jeremy that is the one who possesses Bonnie, so we can assume the same in this case, that that phrase is referring to FNAF VR Jeremy. But when you get that achievement, no matter which plushie you get, the achievement is always showing the Bonnie plushie. This to me seems to indicate that Jeremy from FNAF VR is important in this game, and that he is also connected to Bonnie. Who else do we know that is important in this game and is connected to Bonnie? Of course, our player character in this game, Cassie's dad. The fact that these are memories that we are collecting indicates that they are our memories, and that indicates that we are Jeremy. Hell, what if in this case, the phrase is not "Remember Jeremy," but rather "Remember, Jeremy"? We are being told to remember our past. Someone is telling us that the only way to defeat glitchtrap once and for all is for us to face our past. Jeremy's past. Hell, it's just like Bonnie himself said back in Ultimate Custom Night. But who is it that is instructing us to do all this? Well, I think most people agree it's Vanessa because of the ending with Vanny destroying glitchtrap, and I agree with that. I think the biggest thing to indicate that is the fact that the hints that bring us to the plushies are graffiti, which Vanny is known for both in Security Breach and Ruin. She's basically trying to get us to get all the plush animatronic memories so that we can get the glitchtrap plushie and destroy glitchtrap. In this case, who exactly is the young boy in the story? Is it still Gregory? I mean, it could be, but if the Candy Cadet story really is meant to connect with this game rather than something in the past, I would say that while it's implied that the young boy is the the witch in disguise, that's not technically confirmed. It's possible that the young boy in the story is meant to actually represent Vanessa, with both of them trying to defeat Glitchtrap, but with Cassie's dad losing again to Glitchtrap before they get the chance to. But maybe after the events of the story is where we end up actually defeating Glitchtrap. On the other hand, what I think is actually the more likely option, the young boy is meant to be the witch in disguise, and it could actually be representing Helpy, constantly giving us gifts and earning our trust, when in reality he is actually Glitchtrap in disguise, and the final gift he gives us, we lose. What's weird about all this is the fact that whenever we collect a memory plushie, a familiar hand gives it to us, Glitchtrap. For some reason, Glitchtrap is handing us the plushies that will lead to Glitchtrap's demise. Why would he be doing that? Well, there's three options that I could see. A, he simply does not know what they'll do to him, which seems a little bit unlikely because it's like, why would this happen in the first place? It's kind of random to make him do it of all things. B, something else entirely that I can't think of at the moment. Or C, mixes is Glitchtrap. Hear me out here. In Ruin, we learned about the Glitch Bunny mixes, which we all originally thought was Glitchtrap, when in reality it was designed to keep the Mimic at bay, and it was trying to stop us from deactivating the security nodes and freeing the Mimic. But what's weird is that mixes is very clearly designed to look like Glitchtrap. But why is that? Well, in the Princess Quest ending, which Ruin follows, we attempt to destroy Glitchtrap, and we are mostly successful, but not completely, hence Help Wanted 2. But is it possible that Vanessa and Gregory actually used Glitchtrap as a base to create mixes? Pull up the meme, because Vanessa just used the Mimic to destroy the Mimic. Remember, the Mimic has programs built into it. Like in the epilogues, he has the cleanup protocol. So it's possible that they just used the Mimic to keep the Mimic at bay. They used a piece of the Mimic's program and like all the little programs that it has inside it that it can carry out to keep the actual Mimic animatronic at bay. Of course, this is only a side idea. I really don't know if Glitchtrap being the one to hand the plushies to us is meant to mean anything. This is just one idea I had about it. Going back to the Jeremy idea though, there's just one more small idea I wanted to mention. Is it possible, in any way, that Jeremy Fitzgerald could be the same Jeremy from FNAF VR? I don't really think he is, but is it possible? In the scrapped screenplays for the FNAF movie, Scott said one of the issues with the storyline of one of them was that the characters didn't really have any reason to continuously return to Freddy's, and he always wants to have something that ties the characters to the restaurant. But this begs the question, what connection does Jeremy Fitzgerald have to the restaurant to constantly go back? Is it possible that Jeremy was one of the bullies, which would give him some motivation? And if the Bonnie bully was named Jeremy, him being Jeremy Fitzgerald would make sense. Otherwise, there's two Jeremys in one friend group, which I mean could be the case, but it's not like, it kind of would be a little weird. The only real issue with Jeremy Fitzgerald being the Jeremy from FNAF VR is if Jeremy Fitzgerald was the Bite of 87 victim, which to me he seems to be, but while I think it's likely, it's not confirmed. The Chica and Freddy bullies could also very well be Jeremy Fitzgerald though, especially since you wear a Freddy mask in FNAF 2, just like the Freddy bully does. Either way, I feel like the Bonnie bully and also Cassie's dad, and also the Jeremy from FNAF VR, who I all think is the same person, could be Jeremy Fitzgerald. Just imagine how the fanbase would blow up if we learned at some point that Cassie's last name is Fitzgerald. Imagine that. What would the fan base be like? What would the theorist community turn into? Everyone would blow up. But again, it's just speculation. For the rest of the video, I want to talk a bit about the Mimic and the Vanny Mask. It's not that hard to tell that the Vanny Mask is making us see the world how it used to be, and stuff like the Roxy minigame and DJ Music Man's minigames, with the Vanny Mask and therefore the Mimic blocking off the levels that he doesn't want us to see, many of which are ones that reveal the truth of his whole situation, which we see in the hard mode of those levels when we're not wearing the mask, and when we see everything how it really is. Not wearing the mask in these levels would definitely make him suspicious to the fact that he's actually dead in a VR simulation, which we discussed in the first theory on this game. Revealing the Pizzaplex to actually be destroyed would show him that something is wrong. But how exactly does this work? I think this game being VR is definitely true, as it just wouldn't work as a real-life experience, since we literally teleport all around the place, and Mystic Hippo's thing about hands indicates that as well. But some of these minigames are real events, most especially Roxy's repair minigame. The hard mode version of this minigame actually leads directly into Ruin, with Roxy getting the mask that she wears in Ruin, and lying down and crying at the beauty salon, believing that she's not beautiful anymore and wanting to find Gregory to get her eyes back, and she immediately thinks about Gregory here, and then in Ruin she hears Gregory's voice and goes after him. They lead directly into each other. This minigame takes place right before Ruin. But who did this if it wasn't us? And how could we have done it if we're in a VR game? Is there a VR version of us there at that moment? This may sound crazy, but I honestly think that Cassie's dad is the one who did this in some way, and there's two ways that I could see this, and I think they're both plausible. The first idea comes from the ending where we find ourselves to be a mask bot giving Cassie the mask. So is it possible that for the rest of the game, while we see ourselves as just a virtual human, that in the physical Pizzaplex, we are still controlling that mask bot, doing all these tasks, believing ourselves to be a real living human doing all this stuff without realizing that we're in VR and doing it through the mask bot. That would make the reveal at the end make a lot more sense if we controlled mask bot throughout all the levels in the Pizzaplex. But the other idea is a bit more outlandish and less likely, but still kind of possible. In Glamrock Freddy's cold storage level, he tells us that he is unable to process our appearance. While this could very well just be because of the situation he's in, it could be trying to tell us that in the levels themselves, we are still wearing the Vanny mask, as Freddy in Security Breach is unable to see Vanny. If we are wearing the Vanny mask in these levels, does that mean the mask bot is wearing them? Very likely, as he has it with him before giving it to Cassie. But what if it's not the mask bot? What if it's literally us? Like a virtual form of us? In Princess Quest 4, we are playing the game on an arcade machine, and playing as the princess on the arcade machine. And we grab a key and open a door, and behind that door, we see a sprite of a person standing at the Princess Quest 4 arcade, turn around, and you see the princess standing behind us. We're literally in that room as the princess that we're controlling on an arcade machine. In the same room as the princess. Walk around as the princess, and you can literally see her walking around you. Use the sword, and you will see her swing it. This digital character quite literally entered our world. Well, yes, we ourselves are in a digital world too, the proof of concept is there, and we do know that somehow digital things can affect the real world. In Chapter 3 of Ruin, we end up on the Monty catwalks. It's really easy to fall off the catwalks in this level, and we have to use the mask to create bridges to get across. The reason this is important is because those bridges literally are not there. We quite literally walk on air. And it's not like they just revealed an invisible object, because you see the real world without the mask on, not the other way around. And when you don't have the mask on, you can fall through that. But with it on, you can just walk across. And that's not even mentioning how a core part of the game is literally walking through objects that are physically there. This digital mask is not only warping our perception of the world, but also just the physics of the world in general. It doesn't really make any sense, but the digital world can affect the physical world in the FNAF universe. So it's entirely possible that instead of controlling the mask bot, we just have a virtual form in the real world that is physically interacting with things. Does it make sense in general? No. But does it make sense in terms of the rules of the FNAF universe? Somehow, yes. Personally, I do think the mask bot explanation makes more sense, but I think the virtual form idea could still work. But what do you guys think? Which of the ideas that I presented in this video, if any, do you think makes the most sense? This video was much more about a collection of ideas, giving you guys a bunch of stuff to work with to create your own ideas, so let me know what you think, and if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and stay tuned because there's still more videos on this game that I want to do, but that's all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!